So today we're going to move on forward with our methods of striking. Okay, previous videos we've covered our Ocho Ocho pattern and our Bandi Banda pattern. So we covered basically our X pattern or our figure 8. We've covered our back and forth slashing. All right, today we're going to work on moving forward to a third out of 7, and that's going to be called what I learned it as the Sungketi Tutsada, which is basically thrusting. Sungketi is a way to say it, and Tutsada is a way to say it too. I could call it one or the other. I just like them both, you know, because that's the way I learned it. So we're going to cover that today. So for a quick review, we're going to cover the Ocho Ocho again. Remember, that can be done in a downward fashion or an upward fashion, right? So we can cover downward or upward. And our Bandi Banda pattern is straight across here. So Banda y Banda. Ocho, Ocho, Banda y Banda. Okay, now today we're going to cover the Sungketi Tutsada. So basically it's thrusting patterns. And the way I look at it as in my little mind, I put it together as Sungketi, I call them straight thrustings, and Tutsada I call gaffing or hooking slashes, right? So this can also be called, when I learned this from Hawk, we consider this, we call this the upside down triangle, right? You got your back and forth, your 1, 2, your 3, 4, then your upside down triangle. So we're going to start with a center line thrust. We're going to come back and work it into a corner thrust and the other corner thrust, all right? This can also be done as a gaff up the center, gaff from the right, or gaff from the left. And to keep this simple, I'm just going to call it center, right, and left. Okay, my right, my left, my center. Okay, so again, we've got the thrusting, center thrust, right high, left high. Okay, from a thrust or a slashing standpoint, gaffing, center, right high, left high. All right, so how that can be put together now, if we add the 3 together that we've learned so far, the Ocho Ocho, the Bandi Banda, and the Sungketi Tutsada, it would look something like this. We come in with our Ocho Ocho downward, our Ocho Ocho upward, our Bandi Banda, and our Sungketi Tutsada. Either way you want to throw it. Straight thrust or gaffing. Alright, so we can cover this with the Ocho Ocho, the Bandi Banda, and the Sungketi Tutsada. And it's thrusting or a gaffing manner. Alright, so now let's take a look at how that can be applied with the blade. Now remember, with the stick, we're probably not going to get a lot of penetration on this, right? This is going to be something that hits and possibly follow through. As I strike my target and that target moves back from the impact, I follow through. As I strike and that target moves back from the impact, I follow through. As I rip up, you know, everything is hitting and that's moving away. As I hit, it moves away. You've got to think of this stuff in terms of what's going to happen when you hit it. You know, when we're doing solo practice, yes, it's really cool to have the dance going on, but probably that's going to happen and I may pull through. That's going to happen as the target moves back, I pull through. That's going to happen as the target moves back from the impact, I pull through. All right, so bang, moves back, bang, moves back, bang, moves back. Now if I'm just doing a straight in thrusting motion, that target's gone. I've hit it and it's going to move back. Hopefully it's moved back. Hopefully I've moved that target back. Okay, so now we're going to do it with the blade. We're going to do all this stuff solo, and then we'll put a little bit on the bob. Now with a knife, the dagger, the dagger, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be the same thing. All right, we're going to come in with our center line thrust, our center line, or our high right thrust, and our high left thrust. Remember, we always want to keep this thing indexed in a good chamber, a good position, so it can slash and retract. I don't want to leave this dangling out there for somebody to grab it. You know, it just gets in trouble the further away it is from my body. I lose my power. The further I'm away from, it's more potential for my arm to be leveraged. It's going to be a lot harder to manipulate me when I'm back here in my strength zone than I am when I'm extended. All right, just keep that in mind. So again, if we wanted to cover these 3 motions with the blade, we got our Ocho Ocho, we got our Bandi Banda, we got our upside down triangle. Okay, now you're going to see a little less of the gaffing rip on this one. A lot of times you'll see people that demonstrate knife motions, but they've never really used a knife against anything, right? Now I'm a country boy from Texas, right? born and raised in Colorado and Wyoming. Went to the military, did my thing there, moved to Texas. I've been hunting and fishing and using a blade against flesh my whole life. Right? I understand how this works. To mimic hitting wood or hitting some other target with it that's not flesh is unrealistic. Okay? To this day, every year when we go deer hunting, we will hang that deer up and we will quarter that deer and we will cut up that deer. And I will play with that carcass because that's the closest thing to a human body that there is for me. So my little brain with the R&D aspect of how I think, I want to understand what this blade's going to do. Other targets that we've used that are similar, not quite the same, we've used pumpkins, we've used different kinds of things, but you need to use something that's going to give you resistance. I have to understand that this is not a lightsaber. It doesn't just cut through everything I hit. I've got to hit, and I've got to cut. I've got to hit, and I've got to cut. This has to follow through. If you want to understand your knife a little bit better, and you don't have access to hunting or something like that, think about it when you're cutting up your food. When you're cutting a steak, does this knife just magically cut through that steak? Granted, that meat is cooked, and it's going to be a lot different than the flesh of a live body, but you still have to cut it. Okay, you don't just magically slice through it. Unless your blade is just incredibly sharp, probably sharper than you can ever get it anyway. All right, so just think about how you have to cut. The motion you have to put it in your wrist to cut. This doesn't magically penetrate everything. I've got to come in and have a little bit of resistance in my wrist or else my wrist is going to break. Same as a punch, right? I'm going to have to think about the penetration and the thrusting motions I have to do when I hit something. So this is not a magical motion. So this motion coming in and just gaffing through like the stick is a different story. The stick will hit and the target will move away. This will penetrate into the flesh. All right, this will penetrate into your target. So as I come up with my Sungketi Tutsada now, if I thrust in here, I'm probably going to have to cut out. Okay, now I can't do much of this. I possibly could. I could open the wound channel up a little bit and pull out. That's very possible. But an easy way is, this blade is sharp, cut out. Okay, as I thrust in, instead of trying to do a wiggle worm and go out, another way I could use it, as I thrust in, I could pull and strike the target. Thrust, pull as I'm pushing, right? That's a way, but a way I prefer to have just as my neural pathway muscle memory is to cut out. Cut out. If I thrust in this motion, this is going to be awful hard for me to do, all right? But coming in here and cutting out is going to be very simple to do. Okay, so if I thrust in and I penetrate, I'm just going to cut out, hit that blade, maybe I come in, I cut out as I'm striking, use my live hand, brother and sister. And as I cut in, it's going to be awful hard for me to turn back and cut that way. But I've got an easy exit point right there. So as I come in, cut, or I slash in here, I could easily cut out, or just push. Now I got to use my motion of my body, use my mass to exit that blade. So with that in mind, think about thrusting in, cutting out, thrusting in, cutting out, thrusting in, cutting out. Have that in your mindset. Do this as your flow drill. But when you think about some of the common sense, the reality of this blade, if I thrust in here, it's probably going to be buried to the hilt. I've done the same test on deer carcasses, and I've taken a knife of decent weight and just dropped it above that carcass, straight to the hilt. Blade goes straight into the hilt. If it's a sharp knife, it's going in. Okay, this blade is going to penetrate this flesh. It's going straight to the hilt. Okay, and if it does go straight to the hilt, you're going to have a hard time getting it out, possibly because your muscle, especially live muscle. So again, another thing, talking about a carcass of an animal that's no longer alive versus a human body, there's a whole lot going on in terms of vacuum, all that kind of stuff. You're going to have to research this stuff a little bit. But understand, this isn't a magic laser. It's not a lightsaber. It's not going to do what you want it to do. It's going to do what it wants to do, and you've got to work in accordance with that. So if I'm thrusting my upside down triangle, or I'm gaffing my upside down triangle, I need to sometimes put into that motion a retraction or a cutout on that motion. I need to come in, think about a retraction or a cutout. Got to think about a retraction or a cutout. Okay, got to work on those motions. So now that's with the blade. Now let's go ahead and put it in empty hands. Now again, these motions I'm doing, this doesn't need a lot of force behind it. The stick has the force of the distance that it travels. All right, this is still a weaker strike than this is going to be with the stick or empty-handed or whatever. So now if I wanted to kind of mimic that upside down triangle here, a center line thrust could be an uppercut to the body, or a straight in vertical shot, somewhere down the center line into the torso. Okay, coming up high, I could turn this in to the overhand right. You come in, be an overhand right that retracts, or an overhand right that follows through. Coming up this direction is probably going to be an uppercut to the face, because I'm not anatomically able to do this, right? So it's probably going to be that motion, or it could be a hammer fist coming back out. So if I wanted to put these together from the Sungketi, what I call Sungketi, which is just straight thrusting, a 1, a 2, a 3, right? Now if I wanted to do it with the Tutsada or the slashing motion, the way I break it down, I'm probably screwing these words up completely. Sungketi and Tutsada really mean probably thrusting, the same thing. It's just a different little bit of dialectic differentiation in there. But I'm using them because that's the way I break it down in my head. Okay, so now if I'm going with the follow through, in fact, we'll make it easier. We'll just talk about from a thrusting fashion. I'm thrusting a punch in, thrusting a punch in, thrusting a punch in from an uppercut. I could be over here, and an uppercut comes in. I'm in here, and an overhand comes in. I'm here, and an uppercut comes in. Okay, you got to think about how you're going to apply this stuff. From a follow through or a gaffing motion with my hands, I probably would be doing an uppercut punch under the chin. Okay, I probably would be doing an overhand right that follows through. Probably doing a hammer fist. So we're actually getting right back in for our ocho ocho, right? But we're using those in conjunction because although they connect and we make the connection between the stick, the knife, and the empty hand, they're different. All right. So we saw the way to apply it with the stick, solo. We saw the way to apply it with the blade, solo. We saw the way to apply it with the empty hand, solo. Now we're going to put a little bit on Bob so you can kind of understand the way to train it. So our center line thrust, practice that. Get used to driving this into something with substance. Get used to driving this into something with substance. Get used to the gaff. Get used to the feel. Man, I've got to penetrate. I got to put a little force in this. I got to put a little force in this. I got to put a little force in this. If I'm stuck here, I'm going to push out. If I'm stuck in here, I'm going to cut out. If I'm stuck in here, I can maybe punch out. If I'm stuck in here, I need to cut out. If I'm stuck in here, I can maybe punch out. If I'm stuck in here, I need to cut out. Okay, understand that motion. Thrust, cut out. Thrust, cut out. Thrust, cut out. Okay, understand those motions. Try and put them together in a way you can figure it out. So again, we're going to apply these with the stick, with the blade, and with the empty hand solo, so you got a little practice pattern. Put them all together with the stick. Ocho ocho. Up and down. Bandi banda. Sungketi Tutsada. Either thrusting or gaffing. With the blade. Ocho ocho down. Ocho ocho up. Bandi banda. Sungketi Tutsada thrust. Sungketi Tutsada gaffing. And with the cutout or the push out. Okay. With the empty hand, I'm either thrusting, the thrust punches, the uppercuts, or I'm gaffing. Okay. So now what you want to do is you want to try and make that connection now between your stick, between your blade, and your empty hand, and that'll help you to better understand the motions we're doing. So this is 1 through 3 of 7. We're going to carry on in subsequent videos or ongoing videos the other 4 patterns. But for today, try and put these together in a flow. Work your ocho ocho solo. Do a certain amount of reps down, certain amount of reps up. Do your bandi banda. Work it from the other side. Maybe you happen to begin in here. Work your Sungketi thrusting. Work at gaffing. Work those motions, put them together. You know, work them, put them together. Maybe we'll do an upward one this time. And we'll gaff. Okay? Got to get creative with this stuff. Have a good time. That's what it's all about. Okay, so get out there and bust your ass. Have some fun. Have a good day.